So good evening, everybody. We're just about to get things started. If we could slowly gather everyone's attention as we start this evening's award ceremony. So, good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening. There we go. So, once again, good evening, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Scott Griffin. I'm IPI's Deputy Director. We hope that you've enjoyed this first day of the 2023 IPI World Congress and Media Innovation Festival, and we're grateful that you've joined us now for this evening for a special ceremony to celebrate courage in journalism as we present the 2023 IPI IMS World Press Freedom Hero and Free Media Pioneer Awards. I'm going to keep my remarks very short as we have really some tremendous speakers this evening that I know that you'll want to hear from. Before proceeding, I just want to say a brief thanks to all of our partners and donors who have made this event and this evening possible. And now I'm just going to very briefly present our two awards so that you know why we're here. So the World Press Freedom Hero Award is something that we give annually. It honors journalists who have made significant contributions to promote press freedom, particularly in the face of great personal risk. And this year's World Press Freedom Hero is actually the 75th in IPI's long history. Our second award is the Free Media Pioneer Award, which is also presented annually to organizations meeting the demands of the moment through innovative models of journalism, media, or press freedom defense. They are opening up new ways of thinking about the free flow of information to strengthen independent journalism and meet the needs of their communities. IPI established this award back in 1996. Today, for the past few years, we're proud to give these awards in partnership with International Media Support, or IMS, and I'd like to warmly thank IMS for their commitment and support as we honor this year's recipients together. I'd also like to briefly thank the members of the international jury who worked in partnership with IMS and IPI to select this year's award recipients. So we're grateful to Siddharth Varadarajan of India, Irina Vidanava of Belarus, and Jose Zamora of Guatemala. This evening we'll be honoring our World Press Freedom Hero first, and in order to do this, I'd like to invite to the stage Carlos Dada, who many of you know. He's the founder and director of the news site El Faro in El Salvador. And I think it's also important to note, and we're especially glad to have Carlos here today. As many of you know, Carlos is actually himself the recipient of the IPI World Press Freedom Hero Award. And we had a ceremony last year in New York where he was honored along with the late Shireen Abu Akleh. Unfortunately, he was unable to attend because of visa complications. But I think if you were there, you remember the powerful speech that he gave. So just join me in giving Carlos an extra round of applause this evening. Thank you, Carlos.
Gracias. Good evening, everybody. I'm very excited to be here tonight to present this year's awardee and have a toast on her behalf. But before I present this year's awardee, let me take a minute to remind everybody that more than a year ago, Shireen Abu Akleh, whose face you have here, she was killed by an Israeli soldier, and her death remains impugned. Her death, as most of the deaths of the deliberate killings of more than 70 other colleagues who were killed last year around the world. These are some of our colleagues that were killed in the last 12 years. Another previous winner of this award, José Rubén Zamora, is still in prison in Guatemala, subject to an unfair and manipulated trial. As I speak, there are 362 other journalists in prison around the world. We need to keep demanding their immediate liberation. Now let me present this year's awardee. She comes from Mexico, one of the most dangerous countries in the world to practice journalism. For over 3 decades, Carmen Aristegui has been a symbol of brave and rigorous journalism in Mexico and Latin America. Her work at CNN en Español and her own news site, Aristegui Noticias, as well as in TV and radio programs, has given her a high visibility and consequently made her a target of several attacks by powerful people, including presidents and businessmen, past Mexican presidents, and the current Mexican president. Her integrity has been put to test over and over through all kinds of attacks and pressures. She has kept speaking truth to power and maintained journalistic principles even when this has meant putting her job at risk or losing it, whether in television or radio programs. She has also been subject to a range of abuses, including smear campaigns at the hands of the Mexican state and other powerful actors. She and her family were illegally surveilled with the powerful spyware Pegasus in one of the first known uses of the spyware against journalists. Despite all these pressures and attacks, she does not bend. She is what we call in Spanish, una mujer muy valiente, a very brave woman, a courageous journalist in a country where that is very dangerous. But the truly impressive thing about her is that she doesn't engage in exchanges of insults with her attackers. She always responds with journalism. She keeps the bar really high. That has earned Carmen Aristegui the recognition and admiration of her colleagues throughout Latin America, where she has become an inspiration for generations of journalists. I am one of them. I invite you now to see a short video profiling this year's World Press Freedom Hero Award recipient, Carmen Aristegui.
México vive uno de sus peores momentos en materia de seguridad pública, de violencia, de desaparición de personas.
Porque en este país están matando periodistas, en este país están matando defensores de derechos humanos, en este país los ciudadanos ya no aguantamos más. ¡Justicia para Javier!
¡Justicia! A continuación tomará la palabra Carmen Aristegui.
Estamos hablando de un país en donde solo en el 22, solo en el año pasado, se cometieron 12 asesinatos de periodistas documentados. 12 asesinatos de personas que probablemente o muy probablemente fueron asesinadas por su trabajo.
Es en realidad un momento muy preocupante para el ejercicio del periodismo. Lo es porque hay una relación entre los delincuentes, entre el crimen organizado y las instituciones públicas de todo signo y nivel.
¿Y eso es lo que rompieron de la puerta?
Sí.
Miserables.
Batallaron mucho porque como la puerta es muy gruesa.
Pero abres y no te llevas nada. Qué horror ver eso. El mundo de hoy hace coexistir las viejas prácticas en contra de la prensa como estas para asesinar, para perseguir, para silenciar, para comprar. medios de comunicación y periodistas, como se ha hecho desde siempre, coexistiendo con prácticas de gobiernos electos democráticamente, como es el caso del gobierno mexicano, que llegan al poder de manera legítima y legal, pero que en el momento de ejercer el poder han decidido y calculado políticamente que los ataques a la prensa les son redituables.
Así que toda esta situación origina que haya muy pocos espacios donde los ciudadanos realmente puedan encontrar información veraz, oportuna, precisa, juiciosa y obtenida a través de códigos de ética. Realmente Carmen Aristegui es una periodista ejemplar. No ha ejercido la censura, no se ha acomodado a los vientos y a los tiempos políticos de México, sino que en ella ha prevalecido el interés ciudadano.
¡Justicia! ¡No hay silencio! ¡No hay silencio!
Es hoy un tiempo complejo donde el poder político y otros poderes, pero el poder político principalmente, está emulando al expresidente Donald Trump. Muchos presidentes y gobiernos y poderes desgraciadamente están emulando esta idea de que la prensa y los periodistas son enemigos del pueblo. Y desde ese discurso se está dañando al pueblo, a las sociedades y a las democracias.
It is my pleasure to invite Carmen Aristegui to the stage. Me emociona mucho, Carmen. I'm very excited to give this award to you. Please join me welcoming her to accept this year's IPI IMS World Press Freedom Hero Award, Carmen Aristegui.
Gracias, Carlos. Gracias a todas y a todos. Hablaré en español y Scott me ayudará con la traducción.
Is this on? I'll be translating.
Es mejor para el idioma. Gracias a los miembros del jurado internacional, gracias a los miembros del International Press Institute y del International Media Support por este importante reconocimiento que nos permite celebrar hoy juntos la libertad de prensa, la libre expresión y la tarea periodística en el mundo. Gracias a Carlos Dada por sus palabras y por el trabajo de excelencia que realizas junto con el equipo del Faro, ahora fuera de El Salvador, pero siempre trabajando para El Salvador. Felicidades también a Carlos por haber recibido el año pasado este premio y el reconocimiento a la memoria de Shireen Abu Akleh, la periodista de Al Jazeera, asesinada en el operativo del ejército israelí durante su cobertura periodística en Cisjordania.
Thank you to the members of the jury of IPI and IMS for this important recognition that allows us to celebrate today, together, press freedom, free expression, and the work of journalism worldwide. Thank you to Carlos Dada for your words and for the excellent work that you do together with your team at El Faro, now outside of El Salvador, but for El Salvador. Congratulations on receiving this award in 2002 and for recognizing the memory of Shireen Abu Akleh, the Al Jazeera journalist killed in an Israeli army operation while she was reporting in the West Bank.
Es un honor estar aquí para participar de este Congreso Mundial IPI 2023. Saludo a todos los que han participado en esta discusión abierta acerca de la libertad de prensa e innovación de los medios en la era de la inteligencia artificial.
It's an honor to participate here at the IPI World Congress 2023, and greetings to everyone who participated in this open discussion on press freedom and media innovation in the age of AI.
Felicidades a los periodistas y escritores que han analizado y discutido en este Congreso sobre lo que está pasando en este entorno global y los desafíos enormes que existen hoy para la libertad de prensa y el ejercicio de un periodismo libre e independiente.
Congratulations to the journalists and editors who have analyzed and debated at this World Congress about what's happening at the global level and the enormous challenges that exist today for press freedom and the exercise of free and independent journalism.
La palabra precisa para iniciar este mensaje es gracias. Gracias por hacerme parte de esta ceremonia especial en donde se honra a los periodistas que han contribuido y contribuyen en la defensa, promoción y ejercicio de la libertad de prensa.
The right word to start this message tonight is thank you. Thank you for making me part of this special ceremony, which honors journalists who have contributed and who continue to contribute to the defense, promotion, and exercise of press freedom.
El Premio Mundial para la Libertad de Prensa estimula, alienta y reconoce el trabajo de editores y periodistas que deciden seguir adelante a pesar de las adversidades.
The World Press Freedom Hero Award energizes, encourages, and recognizes the work of editors and journalists who decide to keep going despite adversity.
Quiero agradecer desde aquí a todo el equipo del que formo parte por su profesionalismo, por su compromiso y por su valiente decisión de seguir adelante y continuar haciendo, a pesar de las situaciones difíciles, un periodismo libre, crítico e independiente. Gracias a todos por su trabajo, compromiso, coraje y resiliencia. Comparto desde aquí con nuestro gran equipo este Premio Mundial de Libertad de Prensa.
I want to thank from here the entire team of which I'm a part for their professionalism, for their commitment, for their courageous decision to continue doing critical, free, and independent journalism despite all these difficulties. From here, I share the World Press Freedom Hero with you, with all of you. Thank you so much for your courage and resilience.
Por varios años hemos vivido juntos golpes de censura, persecuciones judiciales, allanamiento a nuestras instalaciones, espionaje con sistemas como Pegasus, utilizado en contra nuestra e incluso utilizado en contra de nuestros familiares, de mi hijo Emilio, atacado decenas de veces como su mamá la periodista, con el malware Pegasus, aún cuando era estudiante y menor de edad. A las agresiones típicas de regímenes autoritarios en contra de periodistas hay que agregar ahora un cierto tipo de agresiones promovidas por gobiernos electos democráticamente, como es el caso de México, en donde prevalecen ataques arteros y directos de los políticos del más alto nivel, empezando por la figura presidencial, en contra de medios y periodistas. Cuando un presidente con deliberación y cálculo político agrede con virulencia a un periodista con nombre y apellido por decir o por publicar algo, desata en redes auténticas campañas de odio y descalificación.
So for several years, we have experienced censorship, judicial persecution, raids on our facilities, Pegasus surveillance against myself and against my son, Emilio, including when he was a minor student, and a minor, and more recently, hate and smear campaigns. Campaigns and attacks whose clear purpose is to damage and annihilate, if possible, the main and only asset that a journalist can have, which is her name and credibility. Before it was censorship, persecution, espionage, and intimidation. Now it is the virulence of the message, allowed by first and last name. Today, journalists and critics in Mexico receive poison darts from the voice of the president.
¿Qué se busca por parte de políticos y presidentes que en varias partes del mundo, hoy por hoy, han decidido atacar de manera sistemática a críticos, medios de comunicación y periodistas? Aquí sabemos muy bien lo que se busca. Se busca deliberadamente dañar y, si es posible, aniquilar esos dos frágiles ejes en los que se sostiene la tarea de la prensa y su relación con la sociedad: confianza y credibilidad. No se deja pasar un solo día sin que sean lanzados dardos con veneno desde niveles presidenciales para atacar a quien investiga, a quien informa o a quien opina diferente.
What is the purpose of these attacks that political powers launch against journalists? The purpose of these attacks is to destroy the credibility that journalists enjoy and the trust that they enjoy in their societies.
Tiempos difíciles para ejercer el periodismo en países como México. Por eso, de nuevo, gracias por este importante reconocimiento. Este premio nos arropa, este premio nos estimula, este premio nos empuja para seguir adelante.
I want to thank you again for this prize. This prize gives us shelter, it gives us courage, it encourages us to continue moving forward.
Sé que el Premio Mundial para la Libertad de Prensa 2023, el jurado decidió otorgarlo a una periodista mexicana también porque ha querido poner foco sobre la enorme presión que sufre el periodismo libre e independiente en mi país. Somos un país con casi 127 millones de habitantes, una economía media de 43 mil millones de dólares de exportaciones, poseedor de una inmensa riqueza multicultural y muchas cosas de las cuales los mexicanos nos sentimos orgullosos. Sin embargo, existe también un panorama inquietante en el que vemos que es posible perder cosas que hasta hace poco creíamos haber ganado.
I also know the jury decided to award this 2023 World Press Freedom Hero Award to a Mexican journalist in order to shine a light on the enormous pressure that free and independent journalism is suffering in Mexico. We're a country with almost 127 million inhabitants, a middle-income economy with $43 billion in exports. We possess an immense multicultural wealth and many things for which we can feel proud. However, the reality that prevails today shows us the danger of losing what we thought had gained. Today in Mexico, as in many other countries, we're witness to processes and realities in which rights, legality, democracy, and freedoms continue without being guaranteed.
Hoy en México, como en muchos otros países, vemos correr procesos y realidades en las que derechos, legalidad, democracia y libertades siguen sin estar garantizados.
Today in Mexico, as in many other countries, I'll repeat this, we are witness to processes and realities in which rights, legality, democracy, and freedoms continue without being guaranteed.
Un país que, como otros también, mantiene en una parte importante de su territorio fenómenos de violencia estructural que afecta a millones de personas.
A country that, like many others, still faces in much of its territory the challenge of structural violence, which affects the lives of millions.
Hay registro oficial de más de 110,000 personas desaparecidas y decenas de miles de personas asesinadas en contextos de extrema violencia que las autoridades han ido registrando al paso de los años en cifras que llegan ya a cantidades estratosféricas.
There is an official registry of more than 110,000 disappeared people and tens of thousands of people murdered in contexts of extreme violence, which the authorities have been recording over the years in figures that have become stratospheric.
Más de 57,000 cuerpos humanos se acumulan sin haber sido reclamados ni reconocidos por nadie, mientras que paradójicamente miles de personas, principalmente mujeres, rascan con sus uñas los campos, la tierra, para encontrar a sus hijos, a sus hijas, esposos, parientes desaparecidos.
More than 57,000 human bodies have accumulated without having been claimed or recognized by anyone, while, paradoxically, thousands of people, mainly women, scratch the fields and the earth with their nails to find their sons, their daughters, their husbands, their missing relatives.
México enfrenta una descomunal crisis forense para la que sería necesario 120 años para identificar los cadáveres acumulados según cálculos del Comité contra la Desaparición Forzada de la ONU.
Mexico is facing a colossal forensic crisis in which it would take 120 years to identify the accumulated bodies, according to calculations by the UN Committee on Enforced Disappearance.
Los que estamos aquí sabemos de sobra que nuestras sociedades tienen derecho a saber y a estar informadas, pero también sabemos que investigar, informar y hacer periodismo en contextos de corrupción, crimen organizado y violencia extrema puede significar la muerte para el periodista.
Those of us who are here, we know very well that our societies have the right to know and to be informed. But we also know that investigating, reporting, and doing journalism in contexts of corruption, organized crime, and extreme violence can mean death for a journalist.
México se ha convertido tristemente en uno de los países más peligrosos, si no el que más, con mayor índice de letalidad en el mundo para quienes ejercen el periodismo. De 2000 a 2022 se han documentado 157 asesinatos en México de periodistas y trabajadores de medios de comunicación, muertes casi todas que han quedado en la impunidad.
Mexico has become, as I've said, one of the most dangerous countries and the one with the highest mortality rate in the world for those who practice journalism. From 2000 to 2022, 157 murders of journalists and media workers were documented in Mexico. Almost all of these killings have remained in impunity.
Hoy que estamos aquí en Viena, en este espléndido lugar, tenemos que preguntarnos qué significa para una democracia un periodista asesinado. Tenemos que preguntarnos qué significan 2, qué significan 5, qué significan 20, qué significan 50, qué significan 100, qué significan 150 periodistas. ¿Qué hacemos cuando un país tiene más de 150 periodistas asesinados en los últimos años? ¿Qué hacemos cuando la UNESCO documenta 86 periodistas y trabajadores de medios de comunicación asesinados en el mundo solo en 2022? 4, un periodista asesinado cada 4 días.
Here today in Vienna, in this splendid place, we have to ask ourselves, what does a murdered journalist mean for democracy? What do 2 murdered journalists mean? What do 5 mean? What do 20 mean? What do 50 mean? What do 100 mean? What do we do when a country has documented 157 murders of journalists in recent years? What do we do when UNESCO has documented 86 journalists and media workers killed in the world in 2022? That's 1 journalist murdered every 4 days, killed every 4 days.
Asesinar a un periodista es asesinar los derechos de la sociedad, a saber y a estar informados. Y si no hay consecuencias, como no las hay, y si hay impunidad, como la hay, es una invitación a seguir asesinando. Es permitir que se sigan apagando ojos, oídos, voces que no estarán más para informarnos.
Killing a journalist means killing society's right to know and right to be informed. And if there are no consequences, which there aren't, and if there is impunity, which there is, it's an invitation to continue killing. It's to allow eyes, ears, and voices to be turned off, voices that are no longer there to bring us the news.
Hace unas semanas, la organización Artículo 19 presentó Voces contra la Indiferencia, su informe anual sobre México. En 2022 se registraron 696 ataques contra la prensa y México se consolidó así como el país más violento para la labor periodística.
A few weeks ago, the organization Article 19 presented its annual report on Mexico called Voices Against Indifference. In 2022, according to the report, there were 696 attacks against the press recorded in Mexico, and Mexico was once again named the most violent country in the world for journalistic work.
El tipo de agresiones registradas van desde intimidación y hostigamiento, amenazas, uso ilegítimo del poder público, bloqueo o alteración de contenidos, ataque físico, privación de la libertad, allanamientos, ataques cibernéticos, desaparición, tortura, vigilancia ilegal de comunicaciones y la más grave de todas, asesinato.
The type of aggressions recorded ranges from intimidation and harassment, threats, the illegitimate use of public power, the blocking or alteration of content, physical attacks, deprivation of liberty, raids, cyber attacks, forced disappearance, torture, illegal communications surveillance, and the most serious of all, murder.
En 2022, 12 periodistas fueron asesinados en México a causa muy probablemente de su trabajo. Se concluye en este recuento que el año pasado hubo una agresión a la prensa mexicana cada 13 horas.
In 2022 alone, 12 journalists were murdered in Mexico, most likely in connection with their work. And the report concludes that last year, there was an attack on the Mexican press every 13 hours.
En el mundo sabemos del panorama complejo y desafiante que se vive para ejercer la libertad de prensa. En este Congreso Mundial se ha discutido ampliamente sobre los nuevos desafíos de la inteligencia artificial, pero yo pido también que desde este Congreso se haga un llamado a los países sobre lo que ocurre en contra de muchos periodistas en este momento perseguidos, atacados, asesinados o encarcelados por hacer su trabajo. Sé que seré injusta por la imposible tarea de nombrar a todos quienes hoy de una u otra manera se encuentran bajo castigo, persecución, procesamiento judicial o han sido asesinados por hacer su trabajo.
We know here about the complex and challenging environment around the world for free expression. At this World Congress, we've had wide-ranging discussions about the new challenges related to AI. But I'd like to ask that we also make a call on states regarding the many journalists who at this moment are being persecuted, attacked, killed, or jailed for their work.
Mencionaré solo algunos.
Un momento. I know that I'm being unfair because it's impossible to name all of those who today, in one way or another, face punishment, persecution, judicial harassment, or who have been killed for their work.
José Rubén Fonseca, Premio Héroe de la Libertad de IPI, se encuentra hoy, como lo dijo Carlos, en una cárcel de Guatemala, sometido a un cuestionado proceso judicial que apunta claramente a la persecución judicial y política. El periódico, la publicación que fundó y desde la que dirigió las más importantes investigaciones periodísticas en Guatemala de los últimos años, tuvo que ser cerrado hace apenas unos días, acusando persecución política.
But here's a message of support and solidarity for José Rubén Fonseca Zamora, who is also an IPI World Press Freedom Hero and is jailed now in Guatemala, subject to a questionable judicial process that bears the hallmarks of a political prosecution. El Periódico, the publication that he founded and from where he's led the most important journalistic investigations in Guatemala in recent years, had to be closed just a few days ago, citing political persecution.
Un mensaje para Carlos Fernando Chamorro, para Sergio Ramírez y para todos los periodistas y escritores que han sido atacados, encarcelados, perseguidos y los han declarado traidores a la patria desde Nicaragua. Desde aquí un mensaje para aquellos a quienes se han visto encarcelados, quienes han sido acusados de traición a la patria y se les han quitado patrimonio, nacionalidad y se les expulsó también de su país, Nicaragua.
I'd like to also send a message for Carlos Fernando Chamorro and Sergio Ramírez and all those whom the Nicaraguan regime has jailed, persecuted, or has declared traitors to the homeland. From here, I'd like to send a message for all those who have been jailed, who have been accused of being a traitor in order to take away their homeland, to take away their nationality, their citizenship, and to expel them from Nicaragua.
Considerado símbolo de la libertad de expresión y de prensa y fundador de Apple Daily en Hong Kong, Jimmy Lai, de 75 años, fue detenido y acusado de manera arbitraria de atentar contra la seguridad nacional y otros cargos. Reporteros Sin Fronteras, junto con editores y periodistas de varios países del mundo, se han pronunciado recientemente para destacar su tarea a favor del pluralismo y la información independiente y para exigir su liberación.
I'd also like to highlight the case of Jimmy Lai, considered a symbol of press freedom. He's the founder of Apple Daily in Hong Kong. At 75 years old, Jimmy Lai was detained and is facing arbitrary national security charges, among other charges, in Hong Kong. Reporters Without Borders, together with editors and journalists from all parts of the world, have highlighted his case, citing pluralism and independent information and demanding his freedom.
Para cerrar, imposible no mencionar el caso de Julian Assange, periodista, y hay que subrayar lo de periodista, fundador de Wikileaks, que como todos sabemos se encuentra hoy en un devastador proceso que puede derivar en la extradición a los Estados Unidos, acusado de cargos criminales que podrían costar cárcel de por vida, tal como lo publicaron de manera conjunta The New York Times, Der Spiegel, Le Monde, The Guardian y El País. La acusación y las acusaciones contra Julian Assange son un peligro, un peligroso precedente contra la libertad de prensa. Obtener y revelar información delicada es obligación principal de los periodistas con las sociedades. El caso Assange representa un grave peligro para la primera enmienda de la Constitución de los Estados Unidos y, por supuesto, para la libertad de prensa en todo el mundo.
To close, it would be impossible not to mention the case of Julian Assange, a journalist, and actually, indeed, we need to underscore the part journalist and founder of WikiLeaks, who, as we all know, is currently involved in a devastating legal case that could end in his extradition to the United States to face charges for which he risks life in prison. I'll refer to what the New York Times, Der Spiegel, Le Monde, The Guardian, and El País have said. The accusations against Julian Assange set a dangerous precedent for press freedom. Obtaining and revealing sensitive information is a basic obligation of journalists toward their societies.
Por estos periodistas y por los muchos que no he mencionado, censurados, perseguidos, encarcelados, asesinados o atacados de diferentes maneras en el mundo, va el más amplio reconocimiento por defender el derecho de la gente a saber y estar informada y por defender de manera valiente, aún a costa de sus vidas, la libertad de prensa. Desde aquí, un abrazo para todos. Gracias y buenas noches.
To these journalists and to many more whom I haven't mentioned, who have been censored, persecuted, jailed, killed, or attacked in different ways around the world, to them I'd like to extend the widest acknowledgement and sincerest acknowledgement for defending the right of the public to know and to be informed, and for bravely defending, even at the cost of their own lives, press freedom. Greetings from me and a hug from here in Vienna. Thank you and good night. So I know it's going to be a difficult act to follow after that, I think, incredible speech from Carmen, and I hope that my translation, which got a little bit bumpy at times, was still able to convey the depth and sincerity and power of what she was saying. We'll be posting her speech later so that you can read the full and better translation. We're going to be moving over now to present our second award, which is no less meaningful and no less powerful. It's our Free Media Pioneer Award, which this year is being jointly awarded by IPI and IMS, to Myanmar now. Before we hear from Myanmar now, I'd like to point out that this year, for the first time, the Free Media Pioneer Award had a global shortlist to acknowledge the fact that there are so many media organizations around the world that are doing incredible work to support the right of their societies to receive independent information. Many of those organizations have representatives here at the Congress, and I'd just like to acknowledge them as well. And if you're here and you hear your organization's name, please do raise your hand. So the organizations that were on this year's shortlist were Arab Reporters for Investigative Journalism, Article 14 from India, El Surtidor from Paraguay, Klup from Kyrgyzstan, Khabar Laharia from India. Project Multatuli from Indonesia. Net Gazeti Batumlebi from Georgia. The Somali Journalist Syndicate from Somalia. And finally, Serkalo from Belarus. So with that, I'd like to invite from IMS, Flemming Geda Nielsen to the stage to give an introduction to this year's Free Media Pioneer Award winner, Myanmar Now. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It is a great honor for me to be here tonight and to introduce you to Myanmar Now, this winner of the IPI IMS Free Media Pioneer Award. Myanmar Now was established 8 years ago, back in 2015. The country's first partially democratic elections were approaching, and right from the outset, the newsroom focused their work on in-depth news and investigative reporting. Myanmar Now has never hesitated to challenge powerful people and institutions. In the Myanmar context, this includes Buddhist nationalists, powerful mining interests, corrupt politicians, as well as the military and security apparatus. Myanmar Now quickly took off and was recognized as a flagship for investigative journalism. But alongside all the professional achievements came serious trouble, a series of court cases, and even an attempt at the life of the editor-in-chief, Sui Wen. By mere luck, he only had limited injuries, and we're fortunate to have him with us here tonight. Following the coup in February 2 years ago, Myanmar Now were amongst the first media outlets to have their license revoked. Their offices were raided, and staff have been imprisoned, forced to operate underground, or to leave and live in exile. Myanmar Now shares this trajectory of persecution and exile with other independent media outlets in Myanmar. As of last week, a total of 165 journalists have been arrested or detained since the coup, and 46 remain in custody or prison today. This places Myanmar second in absolute numbers of imprisoned journalists globally, only surpassed by China. Unfortunately, the military junta is not the only risk independent media faces. I fear that closure of media houses and deafening silence may become the result if international Myanmar Now continues to offer in-depth articles with sharp eyes for accuracy and sensitive to conflict. There are bitter truths of power abuse, violence, and extrajudicial killings in the ongoing civil war. But Myanmar Now publish stories anchored in a strong belief that anyone who faces injustice should be given a voice. As editor-in-chief Sui Wen recently stated, sticking to universal journalism principle and not losing track of our role as storytellers help us overcome the dilemmas and ambiguities we face. And now I would like us to see a small video on Myanmar Now.
When I heard about the news of the coup, I wasn't so much worried about losing our own freedom of press. I was very sorry about the fate of our younger generation. They just briefly tasted democracy for a few years. They were now confronted with the realities of the military dictatorship, arbitrary arrest, torture, all kinds of injustices you can imagine are in an oppressive state. 2 years since the military coup, thousands of people have been thrown into jail. Some of them were arrested just because they were accused of sharing social media posts critical of the military junta. All the reporters of our news outlet and that of other newsrooms, they found themselves in immediate danger of being arrested and thrown into jail. We were so much overwhelmed with the news developments. We managed to keep reporting up until now, just because of the fact that our colleagues remain committed to this profession in the belief that the public needs independent and unbiased information. We ourselves become fatigued with all this news, but we have to remind ourselves, anyone who gets killed or anyone who gets tortured or arrested is an important story. How many people have been already subjected to these experiences? These events should still make headlines actually. They should get the proper attention. We really appreciate this kind of award being given not just to Myanmar Now, to all the media workers in our country who are struggling actually to keep reporting. So this kind of award, I think, should give a mental booster to many Myanmar journalists.
I find it very encouraging to see how independent media in Myanmar continued despite military oppression and financial struggle. And I also want to say that I'm grateful for the collaboration between IMS and IPI, which celebrates trailblazing media outlets working to uphold the people's right to access valid information. I sincerely hope this award will not only bring recognition to Myanmar Now and its entire newsroom, but that it will also instill a sense of pride amongst other Myanmar journalists and media houses working in such challenging conditions. Could I please call upon Suu Win and please welcome him to the stage. Editor-in-Chief and this winner of IPI Free Media Pioneer Award.
Thank you, everyone. I feel very grateful to all of you for your patience and also humility, actually. Your attendance here, our assembly here is yet another indication that our profession has all the universal characteristics, like truth and love. So I really feel grateful to all of you. So I would like to express my thanks to the International Press Institute for organizing this event and giving an award to our outlet, Myanmar Now. This award is actually meant to recognize the bravery and resilience of all the media workers of our country who strive to continue providing independent news, even when threatened with imprisonment and torture by the military junta. It is with them I share it. It has been nearly 3 years since journalists in Myanmar have not been able to go out into the streets and engage in the basic functions of our profession, such as holding a professional camera or interviewing members of the public. Immediately following the military coup in early 2021, as I said here before, all the independent newsrooms were targeted for shutdown by the military junta. Media outlets were raided, our publishing license were revoked, our websites blocked, scores of journalists were arrested. So there are a list of, horrible issues, natural byproducts of any oppressive state. So I feel very grateful to all the people here in this part of the world who have built democratic systems. Just because of that, we can assemble here without fear. So I want to cut it very short, actually, So I'm honored to receive this award, but I accept it on behalf of all those who risk everything to share the stories of our country with our public and with the world, the journalists who refuse to let Myanmar be forgotten. So lastly, what I want to say is we have very interesting discussions about AI. Personally, I am very excited about utilizing AI to the fullest, to maximize, our newsroom protection, actually. I am very, 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 very excited. We have a lot of challenges, particular challenges in our region, and also technological challenges, etc. But I am very, 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 very excited. Whatever challenges I feel, we have inherent power. Nobody can take away. No dictators or no big tech can take away. It is our mind, the power of the mind, to write the stories, to produce the stories with all the love, with all the compassion. And the most important things, no matter how dire the situation, here in Ukraine or in any part of the world, we have to be steadfast to the truthfulness, which is the integral part of our profession. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Take one more photo. So I think that's really two really impressive people and two really impressive remarks. I want to thank you all for joining us for this ceremony. I want to congratulate Carmen and Sway and Myanmar Now once again on receiving these honors. I want to thank, just a small note of thanks to the director Juliana Van Gool for allowing us to use footage from her documentary for the video about Carmen, and also to Myanmar Now for providing footage for that video. I'm sure you're all ready to sort of move out and enjoy the evening. I'll just say one last thing, which is that these award ceremonies can be sort of two-sided. On the one hand, we hear about these really terrible situations, the extreme challenges that journalists face in Mexico and the horrific conditions that journalists face in Myanmar, and that can be a little bit sobering, I think, for all of us. But on the other hand, what we're really here to do is honor the journalists who are persisting and doing their work in spite of these conditions, and to give them our support and to give support to all of their colleagues. And I hope that that's the message that we walk away with from this evening. So once again, thanks very much to you all, and enjoy the evening, and we'll see you tomorrow for the second day of the Congress and Media Innovation Festival. Thanks.